Hi, everyone. It's Leah from Lightworkers Lifeline, and it's that time again. I'm here with Kira Farr, and we are going to be looking into what is coming in this next week for both tarot and if there's anything astrologically that's making a big noise. So take it away, Kira.
Hi everyone, welcome back. Thank you for being here and tuning in. So we're gonna start with I'm gonna start with just a little thing about what moon phase that we're in right now, because I think that it really resonates with the readings that I've been channeling today. So we're currently in a a waxing crescent phase, and this phase is really symbolic of growth and starting a new chapter and moving from dark to light. And there's a lot of intention setting for the next cycle. And sorry, my throat's all messed up at the moment. And setting those intentions and hoping and planting seeds and things like that. And how this kind of connects into the reading is I'll explain it as we go. But I just think that the overall vibe of the cards today and for this week are about opening up your heart space and really tuning into what we have hope for, and allowing ourselves to open the door to hope and really connect to what lights us up, what makes us glow, what fuels us, the dreams and aspirations that we have. And so that's kind of the general direction that this tarot reading is going to take. But I think it's interesting that we have a moon phase that is also connected to that as well. So I've pulled some tarot cards and some animal medicine cards again, just to keep that kind of flowing. And I've noticed there's a lot of shadow work that's been coming up with the card readings that I've been doing. And that's something that I, as a tarot reader, often innately gravitate towards. A lot of my readings are about the shadow side of life and how we can transmute that shadow. And I think that with these readings, if you have a journal while these things are coming up, um, maybe just jot down some shadow work prompts or some writing prompts of the things that are coming through, and write about your experience with those things. Like if we're talking about planting seeds and hope, maybe write down some things that you really want to generate energy into and put your heart into. Just because I feel like there's a lot of shadow work that can come out of these readings and has come out of these readings. And that's something that shadow work in general is something that I'm really passionate about and interested in and like to work with. So, yeah, I think that's a really interesting way that the cards manifest and unfold.
Okie dokie. Yeah, I think that everything that you were saying was right on with what I've been picking up from the energies and what I've been being guided to do. So
Yeah,
I think you're right on with that. So let's dive in.
yeah. Alrighty. So we're going to start with the tarot. We have the Eight of Swords.
Oh, we've seen that one at least once. Didn't we
We
see
have
it this week?
um I'm not sure. I don't remember.
Okay. Okay.
Potentially though. So the Eight of Swords it's in reverse. It's come out reverse. So what we're talking about here is feeling a need to liberate the self from a self-imposed barrier. This is something that we all do, whether it's in big ways or small ways, but it definitely impacts our lives. The swords represent the mind and the intellect, and it's like a mental barrier that blocks us from our path, but there's no actual real barrier. It feels real, but it's an illusion of the mind. It's a lack of clarity. It's a lack of self faith. It's a lack of belief and confidence in the self. And so this card is really talking about the ways in which we block ourselves, limit ourselves, convince ourselves that we are trapped in a reality that we can't get out of and that we don't want to be in. The traditional picture of this card is a woman who is surrounded by swords and is kind of tied up by these loose bandages or strings or ropes that really aren't like, yeah, in some cases there's like a blindfold as well. Like there's this limitation that doesn't exist. Like the swords are not walls. This person is not really tied up. In one of my other tarot decks, I really like this version of it. There's this woman kneeling in front of a mirror, and in the mirror, she is completely bound, but she's actually not in real life. It's the reflection. So, what she sees when she looks in the mirror is someone who is completely tied down to their reality, and she doesn't see that she's actually free. So I feel like that really speaks for itself. Um, that imagery, and in this one, this little cat is just blocked by these swords and trapped in this little cave, and um, yeah, it's very representative of feeling stuck, and I think that's the energy that we might be trying to work through at this time, is being able to move away from our limiting beliefs and find clarity. We have the King of Swords, and here's our clarity.
Beautiful.
The King of Swords gives us clarity. He is able to see through the fog, the sword that pierces through the illusion. It's like the sword of truth, like it's very powerful. It holds that truth. And when we're able to pick up this metaphorical sword and cut through these imaginary bindings and this fog, we are illuminated to see that we are actually a lot freer and a lot more able to express ourselves than we think we are. And there's a lot of clearing as well that's being emphasized in this reading, which will also come up later on with the animal medicine. There's a need to cleanse and clear and chop away anything that isn't actually reflected in reality so that we can keep manifesting our hopes and dreams and allow ourselves to have faith in ourselves. We have the star, which is about hope and dreaming and nurturing our goals, and it's a beautiful little card. So yeah, there's definitely some limitations that we feel are imposing on our dreams and our aspirations and our goals. And the star card, we're all tethered to our own star, our own true north, our own dream, whatever that is. And that tether, sometimes it can get lost if we feel like we've got all these other strings attached to us and we're like, which way do I go? What do I do? A lot of those, if you think of them as energetic cords, like long strings of energy, some of the darker, more zapping, negative energy cords can take a lot of attention away from that one cord that when you pull into that leads you to your best path. And sometimes that can get lost in all the other shit that we're dealing with. And that's, yeah, the overall message is really to um, refocus, cut away those energies, You can even do a visualization or Reiki for that as well, like just imagining that you're severing ties with anything that's negative, or pulling out these like plugs or strings of energy, because that in and of itself, that visualization process can be so helpful for making us actually feel better, because we're visualizing, we're meditating, we're getting in touch with our energetic body, and we are choosing to separate in that moment from the beliefs and the limitations that we have imposed on ourselves. And we're choosing to strengthen the cord that is connected to our truth and our authenticity. And I think that's a very powerful visualization. It's something that I learned about a little while ago through um, researching like self Reiki and energy plugs and energy work and things like that. And if anything else, it feels like you're being very productive, and it feels like you're taking action on your future and like moving forward in some way. Is there anything you'd like to add before I get to the last three cards? Anything that's coming
No,
up?
I think it all really flows very succinctly, and even as I said in the first one, that it's really lining up with what, you know, messages I've been given and been being shown. So just keep going.
Okay. And then we get into some of the more heavy energies that could be contributing to this experience. So we have the Three of Swords, and no one really loves to see the Three of Swords in a reading, but this paired with, we've also got the Five of Cups. I'll talk about them together. So there's areas of our lives where we've experienced, I think the word is disillusionment, or like um, where we have that spell broken and we're kind of like, oh, there's that. And disappointment and losing hope, and even things like regret for past opportunities that we didn't take, people that have left our lives and we think, oh, what could I have done differently to keep them here? What could I have done differently to end up in a different spot? And for some of us in the collective, this could be what could be contributing to these walls and these barriers is feeling remorse or like regret, sorry, for the past, and feeling disappointed and disillusioned how things have turned out, focusing on what hurts and what isn't turning out the way that you want, as opposed to focusing on what is or what could be. And another thing that's been coming up for me personally is grieving for a specific life that never took place.
Yeah.
This might not be something that everyone's experiencing, but it has come up for me. Um, and it's very connected to my inner child. My inner child had specific dreams of what my life would look like and what would be happening in my world by the time I got to 22, 23, etc. Um, and I found myself in a very similar situation, navigating very similar energies. So hopefully this isn't just tuning too much into me. um, but yeah, it's the grief for aspects of life that didn't turn out the way that you wanted. And this could be anything, maybe you dreamt of getting married and you did, and then you got divorced. Or maybe you dreamt of having multiple kids and you only had one. Maybe you dreamt of moving overseas and you ended up staying in your hometown and going down a completely different path. And your inner child is like, hey, what happened to this job? Or what happened to this dream? Or what happened to this place? Or what happened to that person? And sometimes that can make us feel a little bit like, oh, yeah, what happened? Like, I was kind of chugging down a certain track and then things shifted. And the reason I mention the inner child is because we have the Page of Cups. And this energy connects to the inner child. It's one of the cards that connects to the inner child. The page is like, you've got the page, the knight, the king, and the queen. The page is like the little baby, the little kid, the optimistic dreamer. The knight is like the angsty 20-year-old who's just really ready to go. And then the king and the queen are like that fully mature, realized version of those two. And with the Page of Cups specifically, this is about heart center and creativity and dreams and serendipity and even like naivety, or I think that's how you say that.
Yes.
Even that sense of like childlike wonder and curiosity about everything, and the intuitive, instinctual way that kids act. You know, they say what they feel, they say what they think, they if they're intrigued by something, they go and they do something about it. You know, they are like sponges for the world. And as we get older, sometimes we can lose that connection to that childlike wonder, and we can become disillusioned and we can become pessimistic, and then we can create walls because we don't want to feel that. And we go, well, all of this didn't turn out the way that I thought, so maybe I shouldn't, you know, progress. But all this to say, I think that what we should be working towards as a collective is connecting to our inner child, connecting to our childhood dreams. And a really good journaling thing that I did not too long ago was I wrote down all of the dreams that I had as a kid. And these are little things that I thought were crazy at the time, but were really simple, like getting a dog and moving and having a two-story house, like little things that um, aren't that unrealistic. And I wrote these down and I ticked off so many of them because they really were just things that a child would find miraculous, like moving out of a bad town to a better town, having a two-story house, having a dog. Um, I don't know, going overseas. I thought was would be like, oh my god, can you imagine? And I've done that, and that's something that when I was a kid, I thought, oh my god, like that's impossible. That's so cool. I couldn't do that. And if you write down those things that like little you dreamt about, you might be surprised to see how much of it is actually really achievable. Because, yeah, some kids dream about also becoming mermaids, and that's not necessarily achievable, but there are actually people who do that for a living. So maybe you should reconsider if that's ever been a dream. Like there's always something that we can tick off that list. And it opens up heart space to really remembering that you aren't trapped. Adulthood can feel like a constricting environment with all the responsibilities, but really the inner child is still there and we can still access that, and we can still free ourselves from the illusion that this is it, like my life is half over, or it's over, or it's gonna be, and like nothing's happening. And as long as you're still on this planet, you've got time to connect to your inner child, and you've got time to free yourself and follow your dreams. Long story short,
Yep.
I could go on for a long time.
But it's also, that gestation takes place in the dark with no outward sign that this miraculous thing is forming and growing, right? And that goes on that way for a while before you start to be able to see signs. Can be 5 months before some women start showing, So the whole point is that growth and manifesting, they all take time. And it's our linear, impatient minds that get really hung up on that, and tuning in instead to see again from the heart and looking at things from the perspective of the heart. The heart has been designated as an organ of perception by many First Nation peoples. And that's something that we have really warped and tweaked here, where we think that your heart is fickle or your heart can't be trusted because you've fallen in love with the wrong person. But first of all, what exactly is love? You know, can there be a love that's generated from your head? Can it be a lust, or you really, so many things about that person are ticking off the things on your list that you're like, that's the one for me. And then later you blame your heart, but that was all your head. So dropping into the heart, I'm just saying, if you're closed to your heart, give your heart another chance, because most likely it was your head deceiving you and not your heart. Have you ever experienced that, Kara?
I think when it comes to certain things, um, certain pulls towards different things like dreams that I've had and goals that I've had, I have felt that in my heart, like that desire to go after that thing, go to that place, do this, whatever, right? And then, yeah, my head will come in and be like, here's all the reasons why you can't do that. Well, that's not good. Even with people, when I think about people that I've met in my life, I'm like, my head convinces me that every single person is a threat and sends me these signals as if I'm scuba diving with a great white shark when I'm actually just going to Woolworths and shopping for groceries.
I can freaking
And
relate. I can relate to that.
yeah,
Oh,
like
that's a
my
great
head
analogy.
really often wrong, and my intuition is often correct, and sometimes they clash. My intuition will be like pulling me in a certain direction, and then I'm like, but wait, here's some dumb shit that's going to make you not want to do that. And even with my heart, it's the same thing. I definitely feel like it's connected to the overthinking in the mind and the way the brain is wired. And
And not just the
yeah,
brain being wired, it's how we have been kept away from self mastery.
yeah,
We are we are discouraged at looking within, and we are discouraged to find self value on the growth of our inner person. We are encouraged, and more than encouraged, to be fascinated with the growth of the exterior person. So, money, cars, women or men, yes, stuff. Oh, you don't have the modern stuff that I have, like, well, don't you want it? Come on,
it's,
get that mouse, and it totally
yeah,
distracts us from what's real, what's current, because the present moment is in us. We can only be aware of the present moment from within, looking out. So if we're out here, we're either in the past or we're in the future. So there's just so many ways that it has been really conditioned into us, and
yeah,
that's an important factor to keep in mind with, otherwise you could feel like you were weak or something like that. And this is something we are all struggling with. It doesn't matter what level of our personal development, we are all struggling to uncondition ourselves.
Yeah. And I think that, yeah, we're very conditioned to be obsessed with how, like, the stuff and the materialism and the consumerism, but also how to better facilitate the rich people's lives, like the wealthy, greedy people who rule the world. We're like cogs in their machine, and we're encouraged to devote our lives to that, to building a life for someone else's joy and vision, and disconnect and unplug from what we want and who we are. And that's, yeah, like a whole added layer that contorts our heart, and it convinces us that we can't follow that.
Well, and then there's the added layer of being terrified to look at ourselves and terrified to show anybody ourselves because
Yeah.
we're convinced that people would leave us in the dirt if we if they really knew who we were, if they really saw how we were. And the thing is we haven't been looking at who we are. We haven't been tending to it. It's not a cultural focus. So of
Yeah.
course we've run amok some, you know, but that fear that you would be unlovable if people saw how you are, that's also fairly universal and fairly pretty much a lie, right?
Yeah. And when you consider the fact that we are all energy and consciousness, and we are all filled with so much love for each other, that we don't even realize it while we're down here. But if you take a look back, like if you step back and just watch people interact with each other, you'll see that there's so much love between people, and it intertwines in so many ways. Like, so many people really do love each other. There's just a lot of fear under there as well. Like, there's fear of vulnerability, fear of being seen and perceived because of what you said. People will leave you in the dust. But I think that when that happens, when we are afraid that people will leave us, or people have, that's what was a there was a train of thought and I just lost it. Um,
Oh, gosh.
yeah, like, um, it's connected to people's priorities. Like, how do I explain this? People don't want to be associated with certain people who are open and fully different, because they themselves don't want to get dragged into the reality that maybe they themselves need to do that and open up and look at themselves. And it can be triggering to meet people who are so authentic, because it makes you question yourself and what you're doing. And maybe that has something to do with it as
And
well. There's a lot of
before
layers.
before you even get to questioning it yourself, you generally first, for a while, just experience being triggered, because it's like, how dare that person do what I've struggled so hard not to do so I can be socially acceptable? How dare they? And that
Yeah,
tends to be the immediate reaction until you grow and evolve some, and then you start questioning, but there are plenty of people that do that without questioning.
yeah,
So yeah, it's all a choice. What do you focus on? What do you focus on growing? And I think for the most part that if you've been comfortable existing in the world with the paradigm the way it has been, if you've been comfortable and successful doing that, most of those people don't really feel an internal impetus to change. It's the people that haven't been successful, the people that are fringe or marginal with their, successes with the modern world. Those are the people who begin exploring and delving and asking questions. So it's also a
Yeah.
part of how well you're able to fit in or camouflage, and how meaningful that ends up being to you, because that can end up being very draining.
Yeah. That reminds me of the animal medicine card, the whole like response and reaction and fear. Because one of the cards we got was the opossum, which I think you posted something about the opossum not that long ago.
Yes, I
So I
did.
thought that that came out, and that card does it talks about, knowing when to play dead, when to react, when how to respond. It's connected to like a lot of strategy, right? And knowing how to go with what's going on around you, how to react to what's going on around you, and things like that. So,
In a way that keeps you safe. It
exactly,
always
following,
always thinks of how to modify your behavior so that you can stay safe,
yeah,
which
because
is a
sometimes
yeah.
we have to do that. We don't all have the privilege to um, be able to differ from the rest of people. Like, there's so many people in different parts of the world who literally cannot go against the grain because something terrible could happen to them. Like there's so much that people have to do to protect themselves, and for some people it's, there's more freedom, and for other people there's less freedom. So the opossum, it knows when it needs to play dead, it knows when it needs to attack, and it knows when it's safe, and it goes with its instinct to try and survive the encounters that it has. And this card talks heavily about strategy. And it also talks about how sometimes we can be overly dramatic with that in regards to playing dead metaphorically. Um, Sometimes we can take that so over the top to the point where we're like playing a role so intensely for no reason. Um, but yeah, it's how we feel we need to act in order to survive, essentially.
Yeah, it's a powerful card. What other ones came up?
So we have the frog, which is about cleansing.
And bringing the rain for those of you that are in drought.
Yeah, it's definitely like bathing in that water energy and absorbing that water and cleansing the energy. And exercise is really, really nice. Is if you get into the shower and you just imagine it's like washing away all the negative energy as well as actually cleaning you. Once again, it's visualization, but it does feel really nice to just let that experience happen. Just let that temporarily even just wash away some of those feelings that you've got going on. And yeah, the frog is representative of just bathing in that clearing and cleansing. Like if you're near an ocean, if you have access to a body of water where you can do this, if you've got access to a lake or a river or an ocean that's safe to swim in, you can swim, especially if it's the ocean, because it's got that healing. Like not only is it really cold, so you could do like a cold plunge, but there's also the salt, and yeah, it's just very healing and cleansing to be in water, or just any form of water if you can get a hold of some something that you can kind of bathe in and cleanse yourself in. And water is very connected to the intuition and to the feelings and emotions. It's representative of those kinds of energies as well. And we also have the hummingbird.
Beautiful. And while you started the reading, there was a point, I don't know if you noticed, my eyes were moving because there was a hummingbird flitting around all the flowers around me.
Oh, cute. Extra confirmation.
Yeah.
The hummingbird has a really sweet message about joy, and it has come through reverse, which is reminding us to reconnect with joy. With the Page of Cups, it's the same message. It's reconnect with your happiness, reconnect with your joy, allow yourself to dream and have hope and flitter around in that world that you used to live in if you had, dreams as a child that were really fantastical and majestic and crazy. Like, allow yourself to play in that again. I think a lot of people disconnect from their inner child when they get older, and it is natural, but it creates a very strong wall between the self and that curious, joyous, playful, optimistic self. We can often get sucked into the more like Saturnian, strict, rigid energies, especially if we like become parents, that can further sever us from our inner child because
Yes.
we need to take on the role of being a parent. But I think some people will find if they stay connected to their inner child, it can help them understand their own children better and understand the benefits to having a mind that is so sponge like and so open and curious and positive. Because when kids experience, like littler kids experience emotions, they can just kind of, they express it and then they move on. Like, obviously not excluding like trauma and things like that, which can stay stored. But let's say they have an incident, they bump their head, they cry, they get it out, and then they start waddling off. Whereas if we have an incident, not necessarily a physical one, so I feel like we would be able to get over that, but you know what I mean? Like, we tend to kind of store things in, and kids just don't, like, unless it's, once again, obviously context is really important and
Well,
things
that,
like trauma. And
yeah, when you said that, a lot of adults have kind of lost their inner child, and you said it's natural. I'm not sure that it's natural. It's certainly supported by our current paradigm, but I'm not sure that it's natural. I never lost my inner child. And I don't know, certainly I had a traumatic childhood. Could that be why? I don't know, but uh, I don't know that it's normal to lose it. I think it's more a conditioned, learned, we learn it from the people around us, who in turn have learned it from the people around them, plus the culture, it rolls down.
yeah, yeah, that's true because I myself am very connected to my inner child as well, and try to prioritize that. And yeah, I think what I actually should, to rephrase it, it seems to be where we're steered or what tends to happen to a lot of people. And yeah, you're right. It's definitely more conditioned. Um, because when you think about it, how many times have we been told to stop crying, grow up, stop being childish, like every day of our lives for a long time? So yeah, you're
And
probably right.
for men, it's even worse because while women had their independence and their voice and their even sense of appropriateness of getting to know themselves taken away from them. Men have had their freedom to feel everything fully taken away from them. And they were handed, two emotions that they could have, which is like happiness and, anger, or I guess there's some sadness for some men, but, it's like, and they have the same exact physiology that we do, despite, except for a few things, but the whole emotional thing is the same. The nervous system is pretty much the same. So, it's just interesting, again, that all of the things that the cards are talking about for us to do and to keep in mind and to foster, they are literally all things that we're pushing against our cultures and the paradigm to accomplish.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm sick, so I'm trying to hold my
Oh,
sinuses. um, yeah, that's true. Like, there's, it is hard to reconnect to the instinctual real self when you've been taught this, and this. And it's very, it really pisses me off how we're born on a planet that is basically beautiful. It's utopia. It's everything you could ever ask for. I mean, the water, the ocean, the sea creatures, the planets in the sky, the stars, the northern lights, snow, mountains, deserts,
fruits,
animals.
vegetables,
Every single thing about it is like straight from this like beautiful nature. Like,
paradise.
it's just, it's perfect. And we have been born onto this planet to eat fruit and be happy. And we have the, we have the ability, we really do have the ability to live in a society where we love and care about each other and we don't have so much pain and war and crime. That is a possibility. It's just that we haven't made, certain individuals haven't made the decisions that align with that, and that has, and it's a whole like complex, like 10-story building like of layers worth of things. But I don't want to get too much into like politics or anything. But yeah, like we live in this beautiful planet, and if each individual can connect to that natural self and that joy and that bliss and revel in the planet that we live in, I think that we can start to snip away the strings connecting us to a toxic society that only really fuels the people who are rich and powerful and world leaders and governments leaders and things. Like, they're all individual people and they all want to be happy as well. But I think if we all individually recognize how we can return to ourselves and not focus so much on the consumerism and the materialism and the uh, building this physical, material based ideal world, I think we will be much happier just remembering that when we were kids, we used to just love climbing trees, and playing with the neighbor's dog and coming in and running through the house with mud everywhere, like simple things. And yeah, it's nice to get back to that, I think. This is a very broad reading. There's a lot happening at the moment.
Yeah, yeah, but I think that, these are all things that we're being faced with, that we have to make decisions about. And again, it's a practice. And the practice is you slip, you go back to an old way of thinking, or you've re-embraced the fear and the anxiety. And when you find yourself gripping that, take a deep breath and let go and go back to a better place. And then, when you find yourself back gripping it again, release, go back to it. And it's just about practicing, choosing what you want to steep in, what you want to bathe in, make it conscious, because we absorb it and, you know, we become either lighter, literally like lighter, or heavier, depending on what we're absorbing. And it is a choice ultimately. Can be a little slippery slope initially to really see that, but
Yeah,
it's really
it's a way.
beneficial.
It's a good. It's good movement towards something. To just invest in the self, invest in who you are as an individual, invest in loving yourself and caring for yourself, filling up your cup, being happy as you can be in whatever situation that you're in, um, and allowing yourself to care for others as well and support other people. And it's a long, long, winding path, especially if you're, chugging down the road of like, I've got to have everything perfect and in order according to societal standards wherever I am in whatever culture or country I'm in. It can be really hard to derail that. And it can be very painful because you feel like you're being ostracized or you're going to be ostracized.
And
But
you do, in
yeah,
fact, you end up actually, we've spoken about this before, not being able to tolerate the same people,
yeah,
you know, or certain behavior from them that is now just completely not acceptable to you. It is a radical change that you go through once you start the shift, you start waking up. And there are predictable things about it, but again, we're all completely unique. And there are very individual things within it too. So it's fascinating.
yeah. There's a
Do
lot
you,
of layers.
it is a lot of layers, like Shrek says, ogres are like onions, a lot of layers.
Yeah.
So, well, everybody, I hope that you found some something that resonates with you in this reading and our discussions. And we look forward to hearing your comments, and we will see you next week.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.